Hey guys, welcome to the first episode of Unburied, where we are awakening potential by interviewing people who use their gifts to glorify God.
We trying.
Come on.
Powered by Sick of Sin.
Let's go.
SOS.
Sick of Sin.
Here. We feeling good. Look,
we got our drip on.
Shout out to the drip. We outside. We doing it. It's perfect weather, y'all. Get the hoodie, guys.
Get the hoodie.
Come on.
Our first guest today is Blake Young. You are so many things. You're a husband.
Listen.
You're a father. You're a mentor. You're also the campus pastor of Kingdomcity Sydney. And we're just so happy to have you here because you have been using your giftings to glorify God in so many ways.
Praise God.
Yeah, and we just want to shine a light on what you're doing. So we could start by I know you, but tell the people a bit about who you are.
Man, come on. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. What's up, y'all? We here. Y'all, you ready to get into this?
I'm ready to get into this.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
I could never trust a blind man, no sight. People's on the cross, I was lost, now I'm set free. I was locked in the cage, made it out by his grace. Had to make up with my making no Fenty. Had a momentary drop, now we back up on the mount. Had to go and figure out why he sent me.
Man, born and raised, Los Angeles, California.
Come on
now. LA is where I was molded. But Kingdom City is where I grew up.
Wow.
But yeah, Southern California. Grew up between Long Beach, California, and then grew up between the Valley.
Yeah.
Mom was trying to get us out the hood. You know what I'm saying? It was this crazy kind of journey where I got to see a little bit of the hood and a little bit of the sheltered church kid life. Yeah. And I fluctuated between both. You know what I mean? Dad lived in a place where every now and then it was oh, they shooting. Let's duck. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And then where Mom lived, it was Veggie Tales and DC Talk and family Christian bookstores and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I grew up seeing a little bit of both of it. And all of that kind of, culminated into daddy issues and broken home and life and fun stuff we could talk about more. But I'm grateful to be here. And everything that I've seen in my life, I'm just grateful to just love on people and just have fun and just be a part of this journey. But yeah, born and raised, LA. Wow. Australian wife, but she's Latino, mocha latte kids, you know what I'm saying? We don't know what they are, you know what I'm saying? But we're here, and it's a good day. It's a good day.
It is a great
that's the quick
day.
Synopsis of me, you know what I mean? But yeah.
This is Blake Young, but you mentioned that where your dad was living, there'll be gunshots and everything like that, and I'm what was life like for you at in that stage when you're with your dad? How do you deal with that as a child?
Yeah. It was the never-ending journey of fatherhood, I feel. You in hindsight now I can look back and see what was going on. But at that time, I was just a boy desperate to be loved. Growing up around hip-hop culture. So we were in the same neighborhood, same gang area, same atmosphere where Snoop and Dog Pound and all the West Coast, all that kind of stuff. I went to the same high school as Snoop Dogg.
Can you crip walk?
That's my claim to fame. Listen. Don't tempt me. You know what I'm saying? But that was so the culture.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there was God and there was church.
Yeah.
And so I knew that he was real.
Yeah.
But struggled to see how he was real in my world.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, you're mixing it up with a little bit of the hood, a little bit of church. So my whole life, I was just dipped in all these different worlds all at the same time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're trying to figure it out. The media's telling you this. The hood is telling you this.
Yeah.
This thug on the street telling you this.
Yeah.
The Bible's telling you this. And you're trying to put it all together. So yeah, it was interesting.
Was that confusing for you?
Oh, I was a schizophrenic little boy. It was legit, what Blake am I going to be today?
Yeah.
Are we doing Kirk Franklin's stomp?
Yeah.
Or are we crip walking on the street? You know what I mean? And you would bounce back and forth. But essentially, you were so busy trying to find out who you were, you never actually had an understanding of identity.
Wow.
You never knew where you belonged and what your name was.
Yeah.
And so you would go elsewhere to find it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what was the moment of belonging then? If you were searching for this belonging and you don't know who you are, what's that moment where you're oh, I know who Blake Young is. I know this version of Blake Young.
I mean, I would have to fast forward to 19 years old, completely hitting rock bottom in my life, checking into a drug rehab for 13 months, and in what I consider the worst, most shameful version of my life. that's where God started to show me who I was.
Wow.
That's where he started to give me a bit of a voice. And that's where a lot of healthy father figures started finally to come around me.
Yeah.
But everything in my life that is good started with discipleship.
Yeah.
And finding healthy father figures to help fill the gaps that the earthly father figures left, basically.
Wow. I think it's crazy that God knows what we're missing and knows what we need and was able to put those people into your life to help you like get back on track. Especially like you've just opened up about being in a drug rehab, and thank you for being so vulnerable about your story.
I'm proud of it now.
Because that's what I mean by that transformation. Like right now, who you are and who you were, like God's really moved. And a big way we've seen God moving in your life, I feel like no one can deny it, is in your musical ability, your ability to rap and flow. And so before that kind of rock bottom point, were you rapping, or that was something that was just dormant?
Music has been there since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like my mom probably has poems of like I was 6 years old.
Yeah.
Writing poetry.
Wow.
And writing songs about life and about God and little stuff as a kid.
Yeah.
Then I can remember getting my first Yamaha keyboard at 12 years old with the jankiest little hip hop beats, and you just in your bedroom. It was black, but it was the most basic little thing, and I would try to memorize my favorite rappers.
Yeah.
And you're mimicking, you're starting out, and then you would try to write your own stuff in that style. And I was so that was little stuff happening, as a kid. But in high school is where it kind of kicked off.
Yeah.
Because listen, in the hood, in Long Beach in high school, you either could fight good, you either had money and you had like really nice clothes, or you were really good at sports. I was none of those three. And so all I had was music. Like, a bunch of dudes in the corner, either beatboxing and they're just over there, and then and this little crowd forming, and you've got this moment where it's like, what are you gonna do? And it was a little black boy's version of Eminem, like you only get one shot, do not miss your chance to blow. And so you would come in there, and in these little moments, that's where I found a little bit of that spark, and started to play around with it, but it didn't really kind of get serious until later on. But yeah, in every stage of my life, whatever time I was on, that's what the music reflected.
Yeah.
And so when God fully got a hold of me, that's where I took it.
Yeah. And so I don't know if a lot of people know, but you were once, or maybe you still are, young chosen.
Once. Middle-aged chosen now. Back hurt chosen.
No, you're still young chosen.
Yeah. My last name is Young. Yeah.
And so, and you were like, at that time, a lot of the music I've listened to from Young Chosen was glorifying God. So like, how did that all happen? When were you like, okay, I've got this gift. I know I'm good at rapping, but I'm going to use it to give glory to God. Because in America, and especially if you're still in LA, there's a lot of things you could be rapping about and a lot of claims to fame.
Yeah. So funny story, right? I was at a youth camp with my friends. Yeah. My friends had this opportunity to rap. They got invited. Wow. And so it was like a little crew, and they all were like, yo, Blake, like, do you want to join us? Do you want to come kick it? Do you want to come chill? And I was like, yo, I'm down. And then they started working on a number. They each had their own songs, but they were like, yo, let's work on like a collab intro. Like, let's come out with a bang. And they're like, do you want to join me? I was like, yeah. Like, I was so pumped. I never performed before. And I had like the cheesiest, funniest, most Christian rap name ever. Like, so I was a nerd, right? Like, I was super nerdy. I loved Samurai Jack. Like, I loved like anime, and like I was obsessed with samurais at this moment. You know what I'm saying? And then, but I was trying to like mix God into it. So, one of the names literally was Shogun Dynasty. Like, imagine, like the worst thing. I'm like, what was I doing? What was I thinking?
That's how they call you up to the stage.
And Shogun had this acronym. It was standing holy on God's unchanging nature. Like, that's what Shogun stood for, right? Like, too much thought went into it. And so, and then another name I had, like my nickname then was Dunami at the time, which came from the dunamis power of God. So like, we're backstage. Yeah. We had been kicking it for like a whole month. Yeah. The event is in 10 minutes. People are coming in. We're behind the curtain. Like, we can see people slowly coming on. Yeah. And somehow my rap name had never come up in conversation. And then at this moment, they're like, oh, yo, Blake, like, what do we call you? What do we introduce you as? And I was like, yo, like, 𝘱𝘰𝘵𝘦𝘯𝘵 or 𝘱𝘰𝘦𝘯𝘕. And they all were like, imagine just 4 black dudes like, like they all just,
like, oh no.
And they all legit stopped. They all stopped what they was doing. It was like, and they looked at me and said, you're not getting on stage with that name.
Wow.
It was like, pick a new name or you are off.
On the spot.
On the spot. They're like, pick a new name or you're off. And I'm like, so I'm pacing. I'm like, Christian soldier? No. Holy roller? No. Like, I'm just going back and forth. And so in the little rap that I was doing, there was one line which said, many are called be, but few were chosen. Like, it's so cheesy now. When I think about it, it was like, my game so cold, all I do is fro. Like, that was this one little line in there. And so my last name's Young. And that bit, many are called, but few are chosen.
Yeah.
And in a moment of panic, I'm like, Young chosen? And I was like, all right, that's cool, get on stage.
Yeah.
And that was just it. And that name just stuck.
Wow.
So that's where the name Young Chosen came from, at a youth camp in Oklahoma.
Wow.
Backstage, you know what I mean? And yeah, so that's where it kicked off. But then over time, things grew, things started to happen. God started opening up cool doors. But it was all through serving in the church.
Wow.
Just being involved with local youth ministry and doing all that kind of stuff.
I had no idea that's where the name came from.
It was crazy.
And if those 4 guys were not there, we would have known you as something different.
Yeah, very different story now.
Oh my goodness. Well, you started like Young Chosen, and you were, how old are you then?
Ooh, yeah, like 19, 20. Yeah.
So, I mean, because you were so young, and especially you're going into your 20s, you know, life's getting exciting. Were you getting lots of hype and like fame from being Young Chosen?
Not initially. So I was a connect leader at my local church.
Yeah.
And I used to have this group of kids that all lived in a housing shelter. And they were the kids in my connect group, where basically it's a shelter in LA where every family in the shelter is waiting for government housing.
Wow.
In the meantime, they put you in a holding tank. You could be there for months or years as you're waiting for a house. And I'm talking about a family of 5 in 1 bedroom with 1 sink, 1 toilet.
Wow.
And a giant complex. And you get just a room full of bunk beds and like showers somewhere else. And so this was where I would go and pick up these kids for church. And so I was just trying to bring them to church and keep them off the streets, because there was a lot of there was a lot of drug activity coming in and out of this shelter.
Yeah.
And so one Friday night, I'm like, yo, let's get in my car. And we would go like dance. I used to crump dance.
Come on.
So I started making beats by making crump dance beats.
Wow.
I was just trying to make stuff where we could dance to.
Yeah.
And then I would take them, we would go to little events. And if there was an open mic or if there was something for free, I was like, get in the car, we're going to dip, we're going to go.
Yeah.
And so there was an open mic at this event. I had only recorded 1 song at this time. And I'd done a little talent show and got like a lot of good feedback. And then I just took all the kids one night because I just wanted to give them something to do.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep them off the streets. Any night they were off the streets and in church was a win.
Yeah.
And so we go to this open mic, and we get there, and I wasn't even going to perform that night. But the announcer, me and him were friends, and he comes up to me like, yo, one of the acts didn't show up. Can you come and do your song?
Yeah.
That, I didn't know that, but there was a bunch of labels that were coming through to see somebody else. And they were all there that night.
Wow.
And lo and behold, as God would do it, I'm up there with all my little dudes, and they just dancing and doing the Dougie and jerk and crumping and running around on stage, and I'm doing this 1 song.
Yeah.
And that was what the label saw, and they were like,
wow.
That was it. Like 3 weeks later, someone passed the song to a DJ named LV. And the station he DJs at is Stevie Wonder's radio station. And it's the largest black-owned station in Los Angeles. And LV got a hold of my song, and he played it on a Saturday night in L.A.
Wow.
On a Saturday night.
Yeah.
And my phone started blowing up, and people were like, yo, we heard your song.
You're on the radio.
And it was just like, I'm telling you, all from just being a connect leader.
Yeah.
And loving on some young dudes.
Yeah.
And kind of cool stuff happened from there. So I got signed a month before I even graduated from Bible college.
Wow.
And things took off from there, and had a lot of fun.
I'm interested to know, though, because you said you were serving at your local church and you were like a connect leader. Do you think that kept you humble?
That kept me alive.
Wow.
That gave me a sense of purpose, because I still felt like I had a lot of issues.
Yeah.
I still felt like I was fresh out of a rehab. I had just barely graduated Bible college. True story. I failed Bible college twice before I finally graduated.
I didn't know you failed Bible college.
Listen. There's so many things. And I still felt like I was so broken and damaged. And almost in a way, I felt like I didn't deserve to be used by God. But all I knew is, God, I got 2 hands, I got 2 feet, and I got some time. And if I can help these young dudes do better in their life than I did, I'm in. And I feel like God took that and was like, bet. And he ran with that.
Yeah.
So in my brokenness, in my such a unfinished place in my life, God used me. He met me there. And he was like, let's roll. And
that's so good.
We had a lot of fun.
That's so good. And I feel like for anyone else who right now is like doing something for God, whether like they're an athlete or they're creative, but they also feel like, oh, I'm not like perfect yet, or I'm not where God needs me to be. Like, what would be your advice to them on how to reconcile that? Like that striving for perfection. Because I know like when you're creative, people are like, oh, practice makes perfect. You got to be perfect. But that's not what God's looking for.
Yeah. Pastor Mark, the founder of Kingdom City, he said the dopest line that has revolutionized how I see ministry and how I see people. But he said, God will use you as he changes you.
Wow.
Where everything I had heard up until then was you needed to be changed in order to be used.
Yeah.
So that's changed everything for me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's a big one.
He's still and he's still changing me.
Come on.
He's still using. So it still happens. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, let's fast forward, because even I want to know, how do we go from being Young Chosen on the radio to going to Botswana and planting a church and like being campus pastor of Sydney? Like, what was this transition?
That was a crazy ride.
Yeah.
It was a true story of where the word of God says your gifts will make room for you. So wifey and I were broke, we were passionate, we were creative, but we were very broke.
Yeah.
And it's not like Christian rap had great medical benefits in America. You know what I mean? And we had done a couple visits to Australia.
Yeah.
First time I came just to meet her parents and say, hey, can I marry your daughter? And that's where I actually met a young Pastor Mark 𝘱𝘰𝘕 in a very young Kingdom City, and saw what is now my church home and my mission in life. I saw it in its early infancy stages, just on a trip, just to impress, my wife's parents. Came back for another ministry trip like a year later, because I'd done a youth group on the first trip. A shout out to Kingdom City Youth, and that had happened, and then it just became a snowball effect of God. So I kid you not, everything good in my life happened by being in the favor of God and just being in the right place at the right time, and someone told somebody else something.
Yeah.
Everything has happened that way. So from being at that youth ministry, someone told a friend, to someone told Youth Alive, to someone told the director, to someone told the national director, and just God started doing stuff.
Yeah.
So we're in my apartment in LA broke, and we're like, God, if this is you got it. We feel like you're leading us to Australia. We felt like for a whole year God was like, Australia. We're like, God, immigration and airfare, how the heck is this going to happen?
Yeah.
But I kid you not, in a week later, in less than 1 week from the moment we prayed, I get a call from the director of Youth Alive. He's like, yo, we want to do a 6-week-long tour. We want to pay you this, and this.
Wow.
We're going to fly you and your wife out. And we was like, book us one way. That was it.
And they covered everything.
So that was how we landed in Australia.
Yeah.
But then we were then on that journey of looking for a home church, because I knew a lot of churches by then. I'd met different ministries, great organizations. But now it was like, okay, where's home for us?
Yeah.
I never forget. We landed in Perth June 6, 2012. June 10th, 2012, we went to 2 churches. We had promised a friend we were going to check out his church because they were doing a lot of cool outreach stuff, similar to what I'd seen at the Dream Center. And then we had promised another friend we were going to check out Kingdom City in the morning. And I kid you not, Pastor Mark, that Sunday, he preached a message called A Church of Power. And I don't know how, but see, I believe in truth encounters.
Yeah.
Like, I believe in power encounters, bodies on the floor, people are crying. I love those moments, but I also believe in truth encounters and love encounters. The day we said Kingdom City was home, I was not emotional. I was not weeping at the altar. I was not laying on the floor. I'm sitting in a room hearing the truth of God's word being spoken, and I'm hearing somebody talk vision. And he said this simple phrase. He said, at this church, we're not going to do a bunch of things halfway. We're going to do a few things, and we're going to do it really well. And like in the spirit, it was like watching Steve Jobs' first keynote introducing the iPod. It was revolutionary to me because I had seen so much halfway vision in my life.
Yeah.
I had seen halfway churches do halfway stuff, and I'd never seen someone actually bring something to fruition.
Yeah.
Like my grandpa pastored a church for like 30-something years, never grew past 50 people. Then my childhood church, they started a building campaign in 1995, still ain't built nothing. So
Wow.
I did not connect fruit and vision to God's house, to
Yeah.
be honest. If I'm being real, I didn't believe in church.
Yeah.
I believed in God, but I didn't believe in the organization of
a
church because I'd seen too much, so I thought. And but yeah, that day I was like, I'm in. We joined that day on June 10th and never looked back.
Yeah.
And from attending, sitting 6 rows back, to sitting front row, to like helping out. I started on the New Christians team. When people would respond to Jesus, I would like take you to the back and like talk to you and like just connect with you. Then they had a kids program, and they're like, yo, do you want to help teach our kids how to do a rap song? Then they started a Bible college, and that was my first job. And so it was so organic, but the simple thread was I was hungry and I knew I'd found home.
Yeah.
And I just dove in. And every opportunities and different things started happening after that. And then I kid you not, one day, 2015, I woke up and I get a message from Pastor Mark, and he's like, you know what? Like, what do you think? We'd love to bring you on full time.
Wow.
And I never in my life what I thought, because I didn't think I could.
Yeah.
I thought the greatest thing I could contribute to God was hip hop. And so that was part of it. Was I thought all I could be was a rapper. So I put everything into rap. And this journey was realizing, okay, no, I am not the gift of rap.
Wow.
This is a tool in my hand, but who I am is so much more than that. And so that was this journey of realizing that I had put my everything into the gift, thinking my gift was who I was.
Yeah.
Not realizing that God had given me the gift, but I needed to now go on a deeper journey to figure out, who am I behind it? Because when you're not using your gift, are you not you?
Wow.
When you're not on a stage performing, are you not you? When you're at the grocery store, when you're driving down the street, are you still you? Or is it like, yo, hold on, let me spit some bars for you real quick.
Yeah,
so,
to be me.
That was a whole nother journey. That could be a whole nother podcast for another day. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
But figuring out who I was the new adventure of my life.
Yeah. I think that's such a really important tip. Like, you are not your gift. You are more than that. And sometimes we need to pause and be like, whoa, who am I?
Facts.
I'm not just this.
Facts.
And I think what's so crazy is that you also do everything like really, really well. Like, I noticed, like when I was growing up, I always used to think that your gift could only be something that is like kind of practical, right? But I think being someone who kind of like I wouldn't say follows you around, but shadows you a little bit, I can see that our gifts is more than something that's just practical. Like, if you're able to like have a conversation with someone, if you have a kind heart, a good spirit, those are all things that God is using to like draw people to his kingdom.
Absolutely.
And I think that's amazing. And I don't know if you remember when we first met each other, but it was at Intensify conference in, I think it was 2022. And they're like, oh, Blake Young's coming on the stage. And I'm like, I don't know who this guy is. And you're like, you get up on the stage and I think you were about to preach. And then you were like, I need to get 10 people up here. I need 10 people. Come down with a random object. I need 10 people. And I'm really like, what is going on? Like, I thought it was an illustration, a part of your sermon. And so you get the 10 people up and you do this like spontaneous rap. And they all go sit down, and then you just speak the most powerful word. And I just remember sitting there being like, what? Like, not only were you able to like be relevant to us and bring the hype, because we're a bunch of like youth who were coming into this room. I brought some kids who really didn't want to be there. And then like they get hype, and then it like opened this room for you to speak this word, and all of us be like, whoa. And I think it's so inspiring how like, even though you've changed as a man, like you still keep using what God has given you in different ways.
Well, that's it. That is a fuller extent of your gifts will make room for you.
Yeah.
See, I use the gift of hip hop to make room in people's soul so that I can hit their spirit.
Yeah.
Our souls are the gatekeepers of our spirit.
Wow.
I don't want to hear what you have to say if you have not connected to me on a soul level.
Yeah.
I need to earn your respect. I need to show you something that makes you say, wow. You need to feel loved, but on a soul level, as far as my mind, my will, and my emotions. If you can connect with me there, you have an open door to my spirit.
Wow.
This is why we love art. This is why we love fashion. This is why we love music. This is why we love creativity, because this stuff connects to the soul of man. Even going back to the temple, why did God need, elaborate art and jewels and fabrics and all of this stuff in his temple? God didn't need that. He knew humanity did, because he knew the value that we put on fine art. God knew the value we put on fine jewels and gold and things that were precious. So in Bible times, he wanted people to walk into God's house and be like, yo, wow. Like, yo, this is crazy. He wanted the soul to be connected to, so that then people could open up their spirits. So this is why I love art. This is why I love creativity. This is why I love the medium of creativity. We need this in our world.
Yeah. And that's what's connecting to people like right now. And so I feel like the fact that you are talking about connecting to someone on the soul and then giving room for God to move, it's like this fuller effect of what God can do.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Throwing it back to your childhood, and you mentioned that like how you were living in the split lives and everything, like how did that affect your faith your faith journey and like the calling, believing the calling that God would have on your life?
If I'm being real, I feel like the devil really tried to destroy my family 3 generations before I showed up.
Wow.
So my grandfather was an abusive alcoholic, but also owned a fashion line. My grandmother is the last surviving dancer of the original all-black Moulin Rouge in Las Vegas.
Wow.
So it's like she's been on Time Magazine. Her personal belongings are in the Smithsonian. She's been on History Channel. So from generations back, entertainment, influence, and creative impact was in my family.
Yeah.
But also alcohol and drug abuse. And there was this attack on us before I even pulled up. So grandfather's drunk and abusive. And this is back in the day when you could send minors to get alcohol, would send my father to the store to get his drinks, make him mix his drinks, get drunk, and then beat my dad and my grandma. And like that's what I knew of. Yeah. And then sadly, me and him never met, because then because of an altercation he got into with my grandma, my grandfather took his life on my dad's 16th birthday. Wow. Imagine you're 16 years old. It's your birthday. You come home and your older brother walks in the house first, goes to check on dad to get him out of bed so that y'all could, eat some birthday cake that they had just brought home. You hear your older brother scream. Grandma runs in the room. Next thing you know, you see your dad stiff in bed, and he bled out over the whole mattress. Wow. Rigor mortis had already set in. And he had shot himself in the side. They don't think he had meant to kill himself. They think he was trying to scare Grandma, because he shot himself in a really weird place. He was drunk, obviously, but bled to death in the bedroom. Wow. So that was what my father grew up with. So then when my dad met my mom, they got married, and he became a dad. He didn't really know how to stay a dad. It wasn't in him. And so they had their own issues. And then so when I'm 3 years old, me and my mom, we get put out on the street. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But then fast forward to going through my teen years. Then when I'm about 18, this is right before I really get into a drug rehab. And part of the reasons was spiraled is because my mom puts me out when I was 3. And my dad puts us out when I was 3. We're trying to figure things out. My mom can't afford to look after me. She didn't want to get on welfare. So then she sends me to go live with my great grandma and my grand aunt in Ohio. Wow. they're trying to look after me, but they didn't know one of the babysitters they hired was a sicko and was sexually molesting me. And one of my older cousins was abusing me. He'd like hang me on doors, like by the hook, and like beat me. And like, so this has happened to me in my childhood. And so I'm abandoned by my father, abandoned by my mother, abused by family physically and sexually. And it all didn't even come out till years later. But finally, when I'm 8 years old, my mom ends up getting me back when she gets her life together and looks after me. And she had a few abusive boyfriends and went through that journey as a child, you know what I mean? And then she remarried when I was like, about 8 years old, she remarried. But really my grandfather, he was a real rock in my life kind of throughout these years. I'll quickly fast forward to when I was 18 years old. My grandfather gets into a situation where he was in the entertainment industry. Yeah. He knew celebrities. He helped start an event in Los Angeles called the Celebrity Golf Classic and a Young Tiger program where he took a golf course in Compton and helped it be revamped and to teach young kids in the hood how to play golf. Wow. So he's an influential person in that world, in that scene. So he something happens to him. He starts losing his mind, starts taking meds, but he was running from God. He was running from the call on his life. A situation happened where he gets into a fight with his wife, who was his third mistress that he finally married. Okay. And stuff happened, and the as the story goes, he had come back from like a psychiatric stay. He was doing better, but she was suspectedly cheating on him with a personal trainer at the gym. They get into a fight, and she's like, well, I'm going to the gym. Something happens where he ends up shooting her 7 times as she runs out of the house. She dies on the front lawn. SWAT team come in. They shooting out the street lights. Yeah. He gets barricaded in the master bedroom, and he puts a gun in his mouth, and he takes his own life. Whoa. So every father figure in my world is destroying themselves. Yeah. And I don't know how to deal with this. And so these were these things that really boiled up inside of me where now I'm running from God. I knew there was a plan for my life. Like I'm telling you, at 12 years old, I had a radical encounter with God. Yeah. I'm a kid sitting in my mom's bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed, watching a preacher on TV. And this dude speaks the gospel. And I look at my mom and I say, Mom, at 12, like when all I cared about was Legos, right? I look at my mom and I say, Mom, with these hands, I'm going to touch millions of lives one day. Wow. I say it out loud. Then I start repeating over and over again, with these hands, with these hands, with these hands, with these hands. And then I burst into tears. Yeah. Start praying in the spirit for 2 hours straight. At 12, the glory of God comes into that room so thick. My mom gets hit by the presence of God. She's out on the bed. My stepdad had stepped out of the room, steps back in, and he just gets face down on the ground because the presence of God was so thick in this room. And I'm wailing and screaming and crying out to God, seeing sad faces on the wall, and I'm screaming out, God, please let them see you love them. Please let them see you care. At 12 years old, I don't even know what love is myself after all the things that I'd been through. But somehow I knew that these faces on the wall needed to see the love of God. And I'm screaming out, God, please let them see you love them. And at that moment, God told me, no, Blake, you let them see. You let them see I love them. So I had that moment at 12, knowing he was real. But after all the breakdown of every father figure in my life, I still ended up in a drug rehab at 18. And it was that thing where I was chasing the wrong people, looking for the wrong role models, looking for the wrong father figures. And I was just doing what everybody else was doing. And I was selling little pieces of my soul to women, to drugs, to alcohol, and became a version of my dad. Yeah. Became a version of my grandpa, to the point where I was about to destroy my own life. Yeah. And by the grace of God, it was November 25th, around Thanksgiving time, 2000. This would have been 2005. I'd just been kicked out of university. I'm about to be homeless. And my mom picks up the phone and she's like, son, what are you going to do? You going to stay at some girl's couch or you going to come home? And that was the first time in my life, Megan, I could feel the spirit of death Like this is why like I'm so sick of sin, because I can literally remember what death felt like.
Yeah.
Like it was a person. I couldn't be alone. I had to be medicating myself. I had to be at a party. I had to be with a girl. Like I could not be by myself with my own thoughts because I was so terrified. And I knew that I could feel death and darkness, to the point where I'm like, I can't stay where I was.
Yeah.
It was like when my mom called me on the phone that day, I knew that if I did not make a change, I was going to be dead.
Wow.
I didn't know how, but I knew I was going to die if I didn't make a shift. So I was like, Mom, I'm ready to come home. And right then and there, a couple days later, they got me a plane ticket. And that night, like it was a Tuesday night, I think this would have been November 27th, 2005. I was checked into the rehab at the Dream Center.
Yeah.
And that began a journey of God rebuilding my life, putting me back together, kind of just putting the pieces back together. But I knew if I stayed where I was going to die.
Wow.
And that's really where God got a hold of me. So I felt like God allowed all that to happen because I needed to get sick enough of sin to be like, am I really going to change?
Yeah.
Are you done? Like, you know, and yeah, so that was the catalyst season where every role model that I looked up to is gone.
Wow.
And all I had was God.
Yeah.
And then that's where he really met me. That's where he found me.
Wow.
And yeah, gave me some amazing mentors, amazing father figures that kind of helped point me on the trajectory that I am now.
Your testimony is incredible. Wow.
Grateful to be alive.
We're so grateful that you're alive. I'm just like, whoa. I just have a question for you. Like, has it ever clicked to you that what happened when you were 12 years old and what God was saying to you when you're 12 years old is in motion now? Like, has that ever?
Yeah, that's the new reason of why I'm excited to be alive now. Yeah. Because I see those sad faces and I get to tell them now he loves them.
Yeah.
Like I genuinely feel like my purpose in life is to be a big love letter from God to humanity to help people understand God, he cares about you. Yeah, you messed up. I was messed up too. He loves you.
Yeah.
You made mistakes. Yeah, I made mistakes too. He loves you.
Yeah.
You've done shameful things. I've done shameful things too. He loves you. And like if people can catch that, if I can remove every stigma of shame and disqualification off people's lives to be used by God, then man,
that is amazing.
So it's cool. Yeah, it is cool to see it happen in real time.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
That is incredible. Talking to you has been so amazing. And I feel like you kind of answered it, but I just have one more question.
Come on.
And it is, when people look at you and how you live your life and the journey that you've been on, what is one thing that you hope that they could learn?
Oh, man. I pray that people will understand, A, how much God cares about them. And I pray that they will do that to this world.
Yeah.
Like I never sought out to get a deal. I was just trying to love on young people.
Yeah.
Even how I met my wife, I was in church. Again, being a connect leader, loving on young people, minding my business, and boom, we meet in the lobby. Every good thing in my life, I can connect back to A, loving people and being planted in this house.
Yeah.
So if people can find a family and love this world and bring them into that family, you can do anything.
Wow.
You can literally do anything. And I feel like that's the true source of joy and purpose, is being a part of something bigger. Yeah. And connecting others to that same thing.
Yeah. Wow. Amen. Well, thank you so much, Blake.
Let's go.
This has been amazing.
This is great.
And I know that, like, for everyone watching this, it's like, whoa, so touched, so inspired, even myself, to just be me and let God use me as I am.
This is great.
So thank you for just being yourself, and in everything that you're doing, just letting it glorify God.
I love it.
And thank you for being the first guest of Unburied.
Yeah, hopefully we unburied a couple things.
Come
you know
on,
what I'm saying?
hopefully
Big shout out to Sick of Sin. You know what I'm saying? We out here. Shout out for the drip. I appreciate y'all. You know what I'm saying? We out here.
Wow.
We doing good. It's a good day. It's a good day.
And thank you for watching our first episode.
Let's go. We here.
Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe so that you don't miss any of our content. And follow us on TikTok, Instagram, everywhere. So you can watch Blake in real time again and again.
Get some drip. Come hang out with us.
Come
on. Let's go. We here. We sick of it.
Bye, guys.
Sick of it.